everybody, we're going to get started. Yeah, we're going to get started.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. We're about to get started, guys. Hit the like. We're going to start a little bit early just because we got so much to talk about. We'll be right there. Check, 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 check. One, check two. There we go. Now it's working. There was a crisscross, as it were, but it's fine. Hi, welcome to the show. Like, subscribe, etc. All the stuff I was going to say that I'm terrible at saying, and then you didn't even have to hear, and all that stuff. And our first guest today, Major Ojeda, turnleftpack.org. How are you, good sir? This is maybe one of our maybe our second to last show before you head off to Europe for a month and just become an international man of mystery. But welcome to the show. I have so much I want to talk to you about today. Not the least of which is Trump's trip to Arlington and the story about that. So for people who aren't really up on what happened, give us your take on I mean, him laying the wreath and then the picture thing.
Well, first off, before anything come out yesterday, when I started seeing the first video of him laying a wreath, the first thing I said, and I went on Twitter, and of course I pushed my anger at this. The moment that he was adjudicated as a rapist should have been the moment that they said he will never be allowed to do any function whatsoever or be invited to any function at Arlington. Arlington cannot be political. Period. Right. So I was livid that they let a 34-count felon, adjudicated rapist, lay a wreath at Arlington, especially the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. That was unacceptable to me. So I was livid about that. And then yesterday, actually later yesterday afternoon, it come out that actually they were approached by people that work at Arlington and saying, hey, look, you can't do this. You can't use this for political. There's not going to be photographs. And not only did they do it anyway, but they actually assaulted verbally and physically the Arlington staff. So basically, push them out the way. We're going to take the pictures anyway. We're going to do what we got to do. And then you got Donald Trump standing behind graves on plot 60, which is where the newest, especially the ones that were killed in the last days of Afghanistan. Yeah. And he's out there with these thumbs up taking photo ops. And that is unacceptable. But here's the thing. Donald Trump doesn't care about the military. Donald Trump was not there the last 2 years that there were events, but it's election time. So now he thinks it's important for him to get to Arlington and be seen. And this is unacceptable. And I'll tell you this. I'm glad that we now know that Arlington people tried to say something, because as far as I was concerned, my thoughts were whoever's in charge of Arlington should lose their daggone positions. Whatever your rank is, you should absolutely be dealt with accordingly for allowing that kind of garbage to happen to Arlington.
Right. So there are a bunch of things that stood out to me. Is he never served, and none of his kids served because he actually shit talks the military to his family. Famously, he threatened to disown his kids if they ever joined the military. And the root of his contempt, apparently, where the suckers and losers idea comes from, is that he views, this is according to people around him and, in his biographer, I think David K. Johnston kind of extracting this while he was writing about him, was that he views it as sort of a welfare program for poor people, that when we're not in war, it's basically how poor people go to college. And so he views it as like a suck on federal dollars and his tax dollars. So he looks down on people who serve. And that leads me to this alleged audio of him. It's of Trump, yes?
Yes, yeah.
And he's saying what? Because you told me about this right before we were coming on. So
last night there was an audio that apparently surfaced, and I saw this video, and it was said. This is what he said: the amount of stupidity it would take to do that. I don't even possess that on my worst day. I wouldn't be in battle because I'm not some dumb redneck who gets caught into war and volunteers for stupid service and conflicts. So if that is absolutely turns out to be verified, which once again, if it's coming from Donald Trump, I absolutely could see him saying these exact words. But once again, it would show, there's a lot of veterans out there that I don't understand why, but support Donald Trump. There's nothing about him that shows leadership whatsoever. It's never been about we. It's always been about me when it comes to Donald Trump. But, it's things like Arlington. Those are the kind of things that makes veterans go, hold on now. That is the gardens of stone. That is sacred ground, and you don't get to go there and get political with that. That right there is the kind of stuff that turns people away from Donald Trump. If this audio is legit, this right here should absolutely tell everybody who's ever served in the uniform of what Donald Trump really thinks about you. He thinks you're a dumb redneck that volunteers for service and conflict. At the end of the day, if it wasn't for those people out there that volunteer for service and conflict, we would not have a nation. I will tell people, and I've said this many times, anytime I go and I speak, especially during the time that we were at war, I would always remind people, like when I would be at high schools on graduation, I would remind people, you got 6 kids in this auditorium right now that have raised their hand and have taken the oath to support and defend the Constitution, and they're getting ready to take off in the next 2 days for basic training. And we are at war.
Yeah.
You know what? There's a big difference. Anybody can say, I'm going to raise my right hand and get a GI Bill. But over the past 20 years, everybody that raised their hand agreed to sign a contract that said, yes, I am here. If you need me to send me, send me. That's how it goes. And it's a shame that we've got people that are at that level that literally think this way about our veterans, and this should turn face.
So this is the audio. Let's see if you can hear it on here.
It would take to do that. I don't even possess that on my worst day.
Let me ask you this.
Excuse me, I wouldn't be in battle because I'm not some dumb redneck who gets caught into war and volunteers for stupid service and conflict. It would take to do that. I don't even possess that on my worst day.
Let me ask you this.
Excuse me, I wouldn't be in battle.
Yeah. So that audio, that's from an account. The only place I can find it primarily is an account called Boats. And it looks like it's shot on a. It looks like it's shot on the monitor when they're in a break at Fox News. So I don't know if you know, by the way, and I don't know how old this is because it's hard to tell. I'm sure more of it will come out. If indeed it is real and all that kind of stuff. We'll just leave it there until it does to confirm it. In this day and age, always want to take everything with a grain of salt, but it's not surprising coming from Donald Trump and his attitude towards, again, this idea that the military is like a welfare program, and his sons, have sort of viewed it apparently as a way for Hispanics to get citizenship too. And so it's even more of that, right? Where they're like, this is how immigrants who don't deserve to be Americans kind of muscle their way in on it. Like, fuck you, dude. And and this is right in line with that.
Right. And I will tell you that I remember in 2004, 2005 was probably the worst year to be in combat, especially in Iraq. I mean, we lost more people during that time. It was brutal. I mean, I was over there the entire year. It was absolute horrible. We were outside the wire constantly. And I'm going to tell you, I saw a lot of those soldiers. I saw soldiers that showed up on the battlefield in Iraq where you could tell that they had those big gauges in their ears and they took them out. You know, their earlobes were kind of hanging low. And you would think there's no way the military would let anybody like that in the military, because the truth is they wouldn't. But because we were so bogged down, because, you know, if it wasn't for the National Guard, we would have never been able to go home on R&R. I mean, it was brutal. It was a brutal year. It absolutely sucked. But those guys, those young soldiers that are Hispanic and Latino, they were the ones that answered the nation's call when we were begging people, please, we need some help. We were extending people's combat tours from 12 months to 15 months to 18 months. And I'm going to tell you, you know, there's nothing in the world worse than getting to where you're almost ready to go home, and then somebody says, oh, we're going to add another 6 months to this. You know,
right.
It's brutal. Those people right there helped us. But once again, it doesn't surprise me that they would absolutely target those very people and try to send them out of the country. If they stood on foreign soil in support of our military, they deserve to be citizens for the rest of their life.
Well, that's okay. So let's, and I'm seeing, as I'm scrolling through this, the potential that this might be a parody video or AI. I will always take that as a possibility. But here's what we do know. And this goes back to him. He's been very defensive lately about the suckers and losers comment. He went on Sean what's his name's podcast. I showed him doing that, and he actually asked to be asked about it, right? So that he could go into this defense posture. Which, and by the way, during the answer, which was a rambling bunch of bullshit, he said you can't even answer this because it will always make you look bad. So he asks to be asked about it, tries to defend himself, and then falls back on it. Even getting asked this question is a no-win situation, right? So just a dipshit. But on top of that, his defense is, who would say such a thing? Who would say suckers and losers? And who would say what's in it for them? Okay, so he always says the suckers and losers thing with John Kelly at the cemetery. Everybody who's been paying attention knows that when he was at John Kelly at the cemetery, he didn't say suckers and losers there. He said that elsewhere. He said at the cemetery, what was in it for them?
In it for them, yeah.
Right. And that's what he said in front of John Kelly. And he's like, I got 26 people saying I didn't say suckers and losers there. Well, John Kelly doesn't say you say it there. You said it elsewhere. You refer to them at different points as suckers in one case and losers in another. He didn't use that phrase. So that's how he's getting around this lie. The other aspect of it is that he's like, who would say such a thing? I'll tell you exactly who would say such a thing. A guy who would say that POWs aren't heroes on stage when he knows he's being filmed. That's exactly who. If you will say what he said about John McCain on a stage when you know cameras are rolling at a campaign event, of course you'll say worse shit. Good Lord.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, you know, it doesn't matter. When it comes to Donald Trump, you know, when you think that he can't go no lower, he finds a shovel. I mean, that's Donald Trump. That's who he is. Mm-hmm. And at this point, you know, I'm now starting to take comfort in this because, I mean, like, if anybody is shooting their campaign in the foot, it's Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And, you know, I don't ever want him to be the commander-in-chief ever again. I am absolutely so glad that I retired in 2014 so that I never had to spend one single minute under that guy's administration. But once again, you know, it doesn't matter what happens. He is going to continue going as low as is possible. I mean, just, you know, I mean, they're destroying their campaign, and Kamala and Harris continue to go up. And at the end of the day, here's the thing. That's important because we need to beat Trump-a-loon. We need to beat him big time. Because if it's even close, it's going to be, they stole it. But if we beat them big time, then they don't have a leg to stand on, and it's done. Let me tell you something. We defeat Donald Trump, that Trumpism is gone. It will be gone. And those people are going to just, I don't know, go away, and that's fine.
Yeah. And you know what? This is the biggest favor you could do for your actual Republican friends, is to absolutely curb stomp the campaign of Donald Trump, to make him an embarrassing stain that they can forget about, so small and insignificant in this election that they themselves can go, I wasn't a part of that, and I want to distance myself, and let's rebuild our party or whatever, so you can actually have a conversation with some people again if you disagree on policy. Because again, if you want to get to the point where we're all Americans and we can disagree on policy, Joe Biden was your dude, and Kamala Harris specifically is the carrier of that torch. Donald Trump is divide and conquer all the way. This motherfucker plays like bizarre, like dystopian gospel music under the ends of his speeches, where he goes, "But now we are a nation in decline," and and I got to tell you. You go around, right? You travel around and have, for political reasons and personal reasons, I'm sure you've been in a decent number of airports in the last 6 months, especially since the infrastructure bill got passed. Any shit airport I've been in before is now under construction. Any good airport I've been in is now great.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And it just tells me, like, you know what's in decline? And this is where I think he shit talks our airports all the time. First of all, he never goes to a commercial airport anyways. Yeah. So I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. The dude has never even walked through one that I've ever seen. When's the last time, anybody in the audience, think of a time when Donald Trump has walked through a commercial airport, a picture in your head, decades ago, much less
during his life.
Never
in his life.
Yeah. Right. And even as kids, like, what are they talking about? I've never seen them walking through one. There's never where somebody walked up. Can I get a picture with you in a fucking United terminal in Chicago, in O'Hare, any of that shit? Right. Never. Yeah. You know what is in decline? The shitty airports he can land his plane at, because the good ones, the regional airports that are owned by rich dudes who, will keep them, or city related or private or whatever, he doesn't pay his fucking fees. He doesn't, like these guys, a lot of them don't want him parking his shit there. He doesn't pay for his fuel. And so a lot of the good ones, the nicer regional airports, the nicer private airports, won't let him fucking land. That's what happened in like Wisconsin and Michigan.
I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, look at what he owes so many places across this country because of his little, rallies that he puts in.
So he's
when Donald Trump comes to town, everybody that's on the police force has to be basically. I know you just got off a shift, but we need you to work a double shift today because we got traffic issues, we got security issues, and the thing about it is Donald Trump comes in, says what he says, leaves, and doesn't pay any of that. And it's good to start to see some of these cities calling him out and saying, "Look, you owe us this much money. We're not going to allow you to do another rally here until you ante up and pay." And because that's how he is.
Right.
Donald Trump is a grifter. Donald Trump is going to, do things and then he expects you to think, "Oh, well, thank you for coming here. Yeah, we'll pick up the tab because we really thank you for being here.
I'll grace you with my presence."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And increasingly, and this is how he ended up in Butler, at that event space or whatever, is that he's relying on these sort of like lower upper class, upper middle class, I guess, rich real estate assholes that he knows, village type people from Florida who've got a lot of money, private airports, or they're a partner in it, or any of those things, or they own big chunks of land in some places, right? And so his campaign just makes a fucking phone call and they have a rally on the private property. And then they leave the place a dump, tread fucking rows in the ground, shit all over it. And then they thanks for being a supporter. And then they bug out and go to the next place. The reason he was outside in an area that is nearly impossible for the Secret Service to completely cover, even though I think they phoned it in some ways. And it was, obviously the assassination attempt stuff is a comedy of errors, a tragedy of errors, let's just say. But the only reason he was in a place like that in the first place is because he wouldn't pay his fucking bills at the indoor arenas, and he can't fill them anymore. So he doesn't want the empty seats. If you got grass past the people, if you shoot the picture wide enough or use a wide enough angle lens, it looks like it's, oh my God, there's a huge, everybody wanted to come, eventually worked in, and I had to do, my shit so big I had to go outside. But in reality, if he was inside a 3,000 seat venue, the place would be half full.
Yeah.
Nobody could take a poke at him, right? But it would be embarrassing. So they do it outside in a fucking field, and where his life's in danger. It's just dumb.
Yeah, it's sad that's like everything. And that his team is telling him, please, you've got to stop. You've got to stop talking about crowd size. Because, Donald Trump goes to these places. And once again, Donald Trump has already proven that he cannot be controlled. And that's not a good thing. Donald Trump, when I say he cannot be controlled, is he cannot stop sticking his foot in his mouth. So they tell him, please, stop calling Kamala stupid. Stop calling her dumb. Let me tell you, there are good men in this country that automatically will turn you off because of the way you speak about women, especially women in power. And, they're trying to tell him, you've got to stop that. Stop doing that and stop talking about crowd sizes. And it doesn't matter. Like, he was on a recent rally where he asked the crowd, do you guys think I should start being nice or just continue being mean? And the crowd, the poorly educated base that basically reads on a third grade level is like, yay, we like it when you scream and yell and call people names, because they're a bunch of children too. And Donald Trump says, yeah, that's right. And then it just goes on with what he thinks they want to hear. Her crowd sizes, she's ugly. I'm prettier than her.
Right.
I mean, this is a presidential election, and you're telling people that you're prettier than Kamala Harris. It's a joke. His campaign is a joke. Right.
Yeah. Well, and again, he's so fucking bizarre as a human being that and he's so unable to change his tune. Like, he will never change. He's not, again, every time there's something that comes up where, if it had been this much different during the insurrection, or if he'd had been a little more strategically smart, or if he'd been a little more aware of something, or even during COVID, if he'd have just managed his language a little better, he'd have fucking walked through the election. This dumbass could have stayed the same egotistical dickhead he was and just said, look, we're going to shut down the economy. This might take 6 months, but nobody's better suited to get us back on our feet, so don't worry. And he could have used the control he had over his own people and the awareness of the threat of COVID on the Democratic side to guide the country through and appear tougher and smarter than he actually is. He absolutely could have, if he was a totally different person. If any other Republican was in that same situation and had the kind of control over his followers that Trump does, they'd have done that, and they would have skated to fucking re-election. But all those little changes, all those little things, like if he'd have just done this, or even right now, people like fucking Scott Baio going on Fox News going, if he would just stick to message, motherfucker, if he could just stick to message, he wouldn't be the guy. He wouldn't be Trump. You don't want him to stick to message. You're contemptuous of people who can keep their train of thought. You're angry at a politician who fucking has a professional concept of doing their goddamn job. So of course you hired this like human blubbering circus peanut of ADD, snorting rails off of porn star titties of ADHD drugs, right? And that's who you wanted. That's who you got. There isn't a variation. There's no update coming, right? You're not going to plug him fucking in overnight and he's going to wake up a little bit better and we fixed a security problem. He's still going to be a security threat tomorrow.
Yeah, settle down, Chachi.
Fuck. Yeah. Oh my God. He came out, if you've lost Chachi, if he comes out, if they're bringing him on fucking Fox News and he's trying to do the audience of one, remember when Trump was in office and they'd have all these people coming out and it was clear they were in the administration, but they couldn't get a meeting with him or he wouldn't talk to them or he's too busy fucking golfing, but he watched Fox all the time. So they knew if they went on Hannity or Fox and Friends and they went and gave him a piece of advice and everybody nodded, he would do it because it was like fucking hypnotism. Because at his root, beyond the fact that he's a bullshit fake billionaire and all that kind of stuff, what he really is an old man who watches too much Fox News. And if he sees it on there, even if he says it, I'm half convinced that he believes half his lies now because he's seen them played on the news, and he believes whatever voice is coming out of the fucking TV.
Yeah, he's just like the rest of these Trumpaloon people that live on Fox News and just drink from that fountain.
Right.
You know, and I'll tell you another thing too. You know, when I hear these people, you know, it's like we're talking about this debate now. I mean, think about this. Kamala Harris was a district attorney for like 14 years.
Yeah.
She was an attorney general in California. She sent friggin' drug cartels. She went after everybody. Let me tell you something. You should fear her debating skills. You should fear her debating skills. This is a woman who stood in courtrooms and got up and gave opening and closing statements that inspired people, that sent people to prison for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, you know, when you hear these people talk about, oh, Kamala Harris is dumb, you know, okay, you keep going down that path. Because I'm going to tell you right now, you know, that's one of the reasons why Donald Trump's teams wanted, you know, they want those microphones to be muted. And because they know that Donald Trump is going to get flustered really fast. And once Kamala knocks him off his game, it's a done deal. And they know that if he has uncontrolled, microphone access, he's just going to start getting angered, throwing nasty slurs. He's going to start being his worst self. And in the end, she's going to love it because it's going to expose him as a toddler that he is.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is that, you know, we know how the entire campaign of Hillary Clinton triggered Trump. You know, we know that and the fact that he was allowed to lurk around her, and that because she was the first woman running at the top of a ticket, she played too nice with this asshole. And I know she regrets. I swear to God, and I will say this till the day I die, but if she'd have turned around while he was lurking over and go, do you have a problem letting a woman speak? Can you just go back to your chair until I finish? You'll have plenty of time to speak on your own. We need to hear more from him. And then if she'd have just had a moment like that, it'd have been fucking over. But because they painted her as a bitch and women are emotional and blah, 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 I think she was more reserved about that shit, and it allowed him the room to be a prick. But he was freaking out about losing to a woman. The same, in a way that he wasn't freaked out about losing to Biden. He's almost comfortable with it. But now, a woman of color, and he knows he's slipping. It's even worse because he knows he's going downhill. He knows he doesn't have a grasp of reality or even whatever he was talking about last. He knows he's slipping. You can hear him mention it on occasion. You know, he's forgiving about it with Biden in ways he didn't used to be because he knows it's happening to him and it's scaring the shit out of him, as it should. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking about Tulsi Gabbard here. I cannot believe that she went down the path that she's went down. But when it comes to Kamala Harris, she absolutely will. You will see another. Excuse me, it's my turn to talk now.
Yeah,
I mean, she will put him in his place.
I'm speaking.
And the reason why I was thinking about Tulsi Gabbard was I believe that Tulsi Gabbard is going to help with the debate prep, maybe. With Donald Trump.
She'll play it so he can learn how to talk to a woman without alienating women is the idea. Because when she starts shit talking him, because that's her gig, helping with the debate prep, and he calls her a fucking bitch, and they're like, cut. Okay, a couple of stories. Primarily, when I started doing Treasure Mall, my game show, when I was 17 going on 18 years old. I'm the youngest game show host in history. I hosted it when I was 17 years old. The other guy was 18 on whatever the Slime Time or whatever that show was. So I was the youngest. And they trained me to do it because there's all sorts of legal stuff. If you fuck up while you're doing it, you you have to give them the prize or something. If you screw up during question and answer, you could cost the show, right? And so there's a lot of legal stuff, right? It was called Treasure Mall, and my outfits are hilarious. It's before I learned that I'm allowed to say no to outfits. Anyways, I was just happy to be working. But the producer, Peter Berlin, had a bell because there were certain phrases I kept using habitually, like we all do. You know, he didn't want me saying like ever. I didn't say it very often, but that's why he bought the bell, was in case I said like and he was ding, he would hit it, right? Any phrase that I would repeat or that he didn't want me to say, he would just hit the bell, you know. Like it's the correct answer is, not the answer is. So if I said the answer is ding, oh sorry, the correct answer is, right? So he would just do that. Okay, they train you. Okay. And Trump will need that, something similar, for trying to talk to a woman that is not Hillary Clinton, you know, a few years ago, before everybody was aware that Trump's not just an unknown entity. He's an adjudicated rapist and a fraudster, and he will lie, and he will perpetrate violence on the country, which is a different animal than I'm going to try to appear normal with this guy because he's got followers. I'll try to win them over. That's gone. You tell by how the Obamas talked about him this time. They talked about him very differently than when, you know, he was a relative unknown what he would be like. He was full of shit, but maybe he'll be full of shit and he'll be fucking George W. again until something awful happens. So that he's going to need that. He's going to blow right past it because, again, he's not going to change. They're not going to teach him.
A shock collar is about as good as they can get.
Right. Yeah. Everybody's talking about like Kamala Harris needs her hair back so you can see if she's wearing an earpiece, which is just fucking dumb because she's memorized opening statements and closing arguments her entire fucking career. It's just silly. But like, we're going to have to check him for a shock collar. You're right. Like have one of those belts on.
Donald Trump's going to show up with another one of those ear diapers on, and you know, right. It's going to be
right. Yeah. And you'll always know when they get him because he'll just go, "I was going to say this." Oh God! They shocked me. Felt that one pretty good. Quit it! I'll do it. Stop, Jason. You're on the button. Jason Miller, you're on the. Ow! Right. Just shit. Okay. So, and I was going to say also, by the way, about Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard didn't go down a path. Tulsi Gabbard was always on this path. She was always on this path. She was always, you know, she was raised in that cult to basically be a spoiler. That's the kind of person she is. She might as well be a fucking Lyndon LaRouchian. Right? That's who she actually is. It's, you know, there are a bunch of people over the years that I feel like we got suckered by because they turned a corner and we were like, wait a minute, you used to be one of the good ones, you know. Yeah. Paul Wellstone died one of the good ones. And Dennis Kucinich didn't. Dennis Kucinich was around long enough for a lot of us who supported him, thought he was a great example of, you know, of the future of the Democratic Party and, you know, the kind of policies one, and then turns out to be a complete fucking fraud, right? Working for Syria, basically another Robert Menendez, except he bugged the fuck out, you know, rather than face that stuff. Now he was running RFK Jr.'s campaign, right? RFK Jr. is another great example. I think a lot of people think, he's a great environmental lawyer, and then, he's gone this way. No, he was a heroin addict, and now we know a coke dealer. He was a prick. He was yet another black sheep problem that the Kennedys had. He was an embarrassment to his father's legacy, and leaning more in the direction of his other uncle than anybody else, right? And what did the Kennedys do? After Chappaquiddick, they created a machine within their family to go, okay, we don't want to ruin the Kennedy rep, so we're going to put you through the fucking rock polish. And so they set you up with a gig, and they set you up with a PR firm, and they all paint you as this something. And you could do that actual work, or you could not do that work, or you could just travel around and fuck hippie girls like fucking RFK Jr. did, while you're getting clean from drugs. In this book, that's what he basically talks about. It was all for fucking show. It was always for show. He's not really the environmental lawyer. He just knew that after Earth Day, that was the direction of the Democratic Party. That's how you clean it up. That's how you make a Kennedy again. And that's what they did. But he's always been that asshole. While that was happening, he was running around with Jeffrey Epstein. He was hanging out with Donald Trump. He was hanging out with Harvey Weinstein. He was hanging out with Bill Cosby. He was hanging out with fucking O.J. Simpson. Like, this guy doesn't know anybody that has a decent past or an acceptable future. It's so fucking bizarre.
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to have the outcome that Donald Trump thinks that it was going to have. I mean, I love it that yesterday I saw that the guy was like, RFK Jr. was our coke dealer. The guy is just absolute garbage. And it's also important that people know that he tried to go to Kamala first. And she basically was like, pound sand, we don't need you around here.
Right.
Once again, the guy's an anti-vaxxer. He's absolute garbage. And then, of course, he goes to Donald Trump. And, of course, Donald Trump and them want to act like, that didn't happen where he first asked Kamala Harris. But I don't see him elevating. I mean, the polling is actually looking phenomenal for Kamala Harris. In the beginning, Donald Trump was winning in all the key states, and now she's up in Arizona. It's a dead heat in Nevada, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan. Those are all up by like 5 points. Georgia, she's within the margin of error. Florida. Kamala is making some headway here, and it's looking scary for Donald Trump. North Carolina, she's up by 3 points, I believe now. In Texas, she's starting to pick up momentum. And the reason why, and every day that goes by, something happens. Donald Trump does something. His campaign does something that shoots them in the foot. The whole Arlington thing, the laying of the wreath. I will tell you that I can't tell you how many veterans that I know that reached out to me that were like, what the fuck is this? And then last night we hear, because we were mad. I was like, I want people's heads to roll. I want these people that allowed him to use the graves of our fallen heroes as a friggin' photo op for his campaign. I want those people to absolutely be dealt with accordingly. And then we find out that they did try to tell him, excuse me, you can't do this. And they were not only verbally assaulted, but physically assaulted, because Donald Trump doesn't give two shits about that. Who the hell are you? You're a damn soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine. You ain't nobody to me. That's how Donald Trump acts. But once again, this isn't helping his campaign at all. Nowhere.
Dude, we've dealt with this so much over the last fucking 8 years, 9 years. If Obama did, if Hillary did, if Biden did, if Kamala did, is like such an overworked thing, because it's kind of like school shootings. Like every time there's a school shooting, it's like, we try to talk about it and they're like, it's too soon to politicize it. And, my thing is, I'm not talking about this one. I'm talking about 6 school shootings ago, you dumb motherfucker. How long do you want me to go back? A year? Because I could find one there too that's just as bad. We can start talking about fucking one that happened 6 years ago if you think enough time has passed to start talking about the political ramifications of it, right? The same thing is true of all these things he fucking does. It's like this, it's almost like its own version of, it's a Trump Gallup, which is that there's so much awful that you almost forget the last awful, 3 awfuls ago, right?
Yeah.
This asshole here, this is the picture of him. That's a fucking gravestone right there, ladies and gentlemen. Right here. And that's what that is.
Thumbs up. Giving thumbs up.
Over a gravestone. Who the can you imagine? Again, it goes to this whole thing. Can you imagine Kamala Harris or Joe Biden at a cemetery going like this over someone's tombstone?
Right.
Well, imagine Jesse Waters segments for the next 6 fucking weeks. Imagine Greg Kelly. Imagine fucking Sean Hannity. Laura Ingraham. All of them.
Did you see? You know, remember that we talked about Donald Trump on a hot mic in the beginning of the show.
Yes.
Now, if you look at there's a video there, and it actually is kind of like it was done while he was, you know, with Sean Hannity, because you see Sean Hannity's head go like this, because even he knows. You know, that's the thing, is that, you know, when President Obama was the president of the United States, Sean Hannity, literally every single day that President Obama was on a golf course, Sean Hannity was there saying, he's on the golf course, not working for America. What's good? What? I'm glad that he's helping his game, but he's not helping the American people. And then, of course, Donald Trump becomes the president, and Donald Trump golfed more in 4 years than Obama did in 8, and Sean Hannity didn't say nothing, because once again, it isn't about the news. It's about power. It's about friggin' being in control, and that's what these people want. And they will do everything in their power to hamstring anybody that's against them, while giving their own friggin' people a free pass to do the worst shit that they could even come up with.
Yeah, well, that, you know, again, it's the ironic juxtaposition of the comparison, what they're always saying. Now, I know why, and I think you know why, Sean Hannity is always protecting him, and it's not that. You know, Trump was obviously client number 1 of Michael Cohen, and Sean Hannity was client number 3 of the 3 clients that he fucking had. And the only thing Michael Cohen did was clean up for rich assholes with rampant abortions, apparently. Check the Elliot Broidy stories. If you don't believe me, because I think Broidy's wife divorced him because she found out that he had paid for 2 abortions, and his defense in court was, they weren't for me. I was doing that to provide cover for Trump so it wouldn't fuck up his prenup, so that Melania wouldn't get any money, right? Because he was But I actually think it's because Trump is a great businessman, and nobody, you know, knows business better than Donald Trump. Nobody provides a product, Major. I don't think nobody knows how to finds gaps in the market and fills it like Donald Trump. Nobody looks at the social media space right after he gets kicked off of Twitter and says, there's Gab, there's Parler, there's Getter, there's fucking BitChute, there's fucking Odyssey, there's Rumble. What the world needs is another one, like single note social media site for right-wingers amongst the 6 that exist. Never mind the fact that most of the traffic is still on Twitter, still on Facebook. Anyways, just basically anybody who isn't overtly racist can be covertly racist and stay on all those sites because he's so fucking dumb. But he decides, you know what? What the world needs is a 7th right-wing media and social media site with one fucking calling card, which is Trump being on there and a bunch of fucking coins. And then he opens the stock at $70, ladies and gentlemen. It's worth every penny. And I don't know why you maggots didn't buy more of it. I'm just telling you. Everybody's going, why haven't we heard from Marjorie Taylor Greene right now? I think because she's trying to get a fucking home equity loan to cover the hole in her financial picture that was created by her investment in Trump Media and Technology Group. That's what I think. Because fuck me. It's at 1948, okay? Now, does Trump make money if it's over $5 a share? Yes, he does. And will he sell will he sell it if it's going down as soon as he can? Yes, he will. Because he needs every fucking dime. When he gets the go-ahead to sell, it'll probably be at $16. If everybody thinks he's going to sell, it'll immediately go to $3, and he will bail out on it, having, you know, made $140,000 for his troubles after all this, because he knows all the best people, Major. He knows all the best people, and we have stupid people running things. And we need smart people like the business people I know, you know, like Devin Nunes and fucking Jason Miller.
Yeah.
1948, that's where it is right now.
Devin Nunes, the guy who gives away a safe seat in Congress for this. Yeah. I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if you saw this or not, but it was Charlie Kirk did some stunt where he took a photograph of his cell phone showing, like, you know, what he does. And it showed that
Grindr was the top app.
Grindr was his top app.
I gotta say this is my, by the way, this is my favorite man of the people picture of Donald Trump that's going around right now. This is his golf caddy wiping sweat from his face with a towel, doing that for him. Which, by the way, Trump will be mad that he was photographed doing, but that just means the guy does it all the time.
All the time.
All the
Probably
time.
wipes his ass too.
Yeah, you never do that for the first fucking time, right when you're on the course today, in the middle of a campaign, right? You do that because you're expected to do that. You get yelled at if you don't, like, I'm all sweaty and he's holding his fucking, come over here, fucking, no, wipe my brow, goddammit. Like, he's done that a bunch of times. So this dude is trained like Pavlov's dog to come over and wipe sweat off this fat fuck's face.
Yeah, if I had just gotten back off of a combat mission in Iraq and I'm soaking wet with sweat and one of my troops walks up and tries to wipe sweat from my face, I'm punching him in the face. Don't touch me in my face. I'm a damn grown man.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. And now, look, if they have a relationship that is deeper and more abiding than the relationship that he has with Melania, I'm happy for him. And I think he would relax a lot in life if he would just come to terms with it. Now, granted, he's got more of a relationship with the seat of his fucking golf cart than he has with his goddamn wife at this point. The woman is nowhere to be seen, and the cover of her book doesn't even have his name on it. Look, everybody's making the case that, oh my God, she stole the cover from Chanel. She stole the, it's so unoriginal.
Well, we know that she steals from everybody. We know that her speeches she stole from Michelle Obama.
Look, a lot of it. Where is it? Oh, book. There we go. Where's the? I'll show you. There's the cover they put on it. Yeah. Here it is. Hold on. Get out of here, you crazy thing. I'm trying to click on the picture of it. Here you go. This is the cover of her book. Right here. That's it. Now available on Amazon. Melania. His fucking name isn't on it. She's his wife. They have a kid together. Like, she's trying to, like, Jesus Christ, we're this close to Ivanka Trump wanting to change her name to Ivanka T. Right? Nobody's paying attention. In a campaign year, the dude's wife puts out a book about her life, and his name isn't on it. Think about it. Like, all right, again, we go, like, Harris and Doug have different last names, right? Let's say, though, she took his name and he was Harris and they became Harris that way. And she put out a book, Kamala, right? Just because she's running for office, without putting his name on it as the president, as like the person running for the presidency. They fall all over their fucking self, right? Yeah. With this stuff. She released, I don't think people grasp what the fuck is going on with this. She released a book in a campaign year as her disgraced husband is running for the White House, and she didn't put his name on the book. Like, I understand if this comes out in 2 years. If you put out this book in 2 years after he's no longer president, he's a fucking stain on the memory of America. I got to tell you, even after he was president, like the year after he left office, if she'd have done it, you'd have gone, okay, she's just trying to distinguish herself as a human being, and she goes by her first name, and she's trying to fucking be Cher and Madonna, Melania. That's the kind of thing. But, dude, it's fucking August. We're 70 some odd days to the fucking election, and she releases a book, black cover, white lettering, Melania.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't pay for it. I wouldn't read it. But I am curious as to
the book on tape would be spooky as shit. Would it have, like, because of her accent, would it have like lightning in the background? That's when I said they fucked at Christmas. And when I was talking to the children about Christmas, I said to them, your mother wants to show you new Christmas decorations. Come into the other room for the scariness of the death. This is our blood Christmas.
The kidney has a very special place in the heart.
I borrowed the kidney for that purpose, just there. But
Dude, how do you have this stuff like ready, man? What the hell?
The kidney is a constant running gag. I just borrowed it for that gag, but it's very appropriate. I would for the record. But then Trump is selling a book. Here, I'll fucking show you this shit right now.
Save America.
Hold on. Here, this shit.
Picture book.
The fucking yet another book where like the whole book deal is no, there's no writing, right? I don't have to write anything. No. We're just gonna steal publicly available photographs. You'll offer to sign a couple of them, right? And so that everybody, and then we'll print your autograph on the inside. And these idiots will, Dad, I'm telling you, Dad, they're gonna eat it up. They're fucking morons. Like that's the conversation that these dickheads are having. This is the book. He's pitching it on his fucking plane. Again, man of the people.
Yeah.
President Donald J. Trump, save America, and he's got his fist in the air. Now I got to tell you, they use this picture. They love this picture. It was all over T-shirts when I was in Gatlinburg, and they're selling it and stuff. Nobody's buying it, but they're selling these shirts or whatever. And even his fist in the air, he still doesn't know to put his fist slightly forward. It's always this weird thing with him, like he wants you to smell the perfume on his wrist. I don't get it. Like he does this all the time. Look, is there a one way to do it as a man? No. Am I saying there's a narrow way of being masculine? No. I'm saying he does, so why can't he fucking do it? He's supposed to be this fucking alpha male, right? He's supposed to be they paint fucking ripped pictures of him and all this shit of him like he's got muscles. They put his head on fucking Rocky's body, and then he talks like this, like an effete Wharton graduate who's going actually, and in the middle of someone else's conversation, right?
Yeah.
I don't care if that's how you are, but don't tell me don't try to be like. Actually, I was captain of the Butch team in high school. Like it's just fucking lame. Here, let's listen to this.
The book is
coming
out. It's called Save America. I think you're gonna love it. Tremendous pictures, tremendous history. And go out and get it. You're going to be very happy. New book is coming.
That's it. Go out and get it. Yeah, tremendous pictures, tremendous history, and I think you're going to be very happy. Go out and get it. Okay, first of all, go out and get it. First, motherfucker, I got news for you. None of your supporters would ever set foot in a fucking bookstore. Secondly, your books aren't in fucking bookstores. You have to order it online, dum-dum. That's, It's why it's so dumb it hurts, Major. It's painful. It's so lame. Jesus. Melania's book's available in bookstores. I don't know what to tell you. You can buy that one in a bookstore. This one you can't.
But I guarantee you Donald Trump will literally call himself a published author over a picture book that he had nothing to do with. Like you said, with quotes that didn't come from him. I mean, what are you going to show on page 1? It's got a Puerto Rico lady hugging her thing of bounty towels that she just caught after Donald Trump threw them at her after a hurricane. Get the hell out of here with that shit.
Right. God damn. It's so like I have to tell you, like I'm always wonderfully amazed at how much further he can take this shit because people were talking about like somebody. It was like because of all the celebrities, the genuine ones that were endorsing Kamala, that there was this whisper. I think Laura Loomer put out a huge celebrity is about to endorse Trump that most people think is dead, which is I don't know what the fuck that means. Like what JFK is coming back from the grave to do it? Is this a QAnon post? But I was like, that could apply to almost everybody who's endorsed him. Like, I thought that guy was dead. But most of the people, he doesn't even want to be endorsed by somebody that's more famous than he is. Like his ego is so weak that even if there was somebody bigger than him, like he would shit talk that person until they're like, fuck you. Like,
Yeah.
that's why he's only got, like, the John Voights and the fucking Kevin Sorbo, right? Because they have no shame. They have no self-worth, right?
Yeah.
But if you actually had, like, you know, if Clooney and all of his bullshit anti-Biden stuff that he was doing came out and endorsed Trump, Trump would shit talk how he's better looking than Clooney and all this kind of stuff for weeks until Clooney was like, you know what, fuck it. You know what, I'm better. I'm better with Biden, actually, after all this.
You know, that's one of the things about, like, the Democratic National Committee Convention, the Republican National Convention. You know, it amazes me how the Republican National, there was no fired up. There was no motivation. I mean, and I love that. Oh, Kid Rock has been seen now more than Taylor Swift. Bullshit. That's a lie. That'll never happen. Kid Rock has got 3 songs in the last 30 years.
And they aren't his. They aren't his.
Yeah.
They aren't fucking his. He's talking over other people's songs. Look, I understand hip hop and rap are real art, and I understand that sampling in and of itself has grown into, you know, its own kind of thing, and whatever. Taking a piece of a song and then working it into a beat or something is an art form in and of itself. But just taking Sad But True or fucking Sweet Home Alabama and then talking through the fucking verse parts and then stealing the chorus is the stolen valor of music. Fuck you. The only thing good about it is the original artists get way more money from it than even the samplers do. Right? Because he's using the whole goddamn song.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, though, is like, you know, when you looked at the Democratic National Convention, you had Republicans that showed up and spoke about how important it is to support Kamala Harris. You know, you never had one Republican president, his vice president, 40 out of 44 people in his administration have said, no, thank you. We don't want no part of him anymore. I mean, you know, the Democratic National Convention, I thought was inspiring. I think that Kamala Harris's speech at the end was absolutely amazing, and she hit so many levels in that speech, talking about how we're not going to leave people behind. You know, we're going to stand up for people. To me, it was completely night and day between those two national conventions, and I'm telling you, I think that we're coming out of the Democratic National Convention on fire. I think the polling is showing that. Kamala, you know, I was so scared when Joe Biden dropped out because I was like, oh, what are they going to do? Are the people going to be able to get behind Kamala? And they are, and she is absolutely killing it. And I think that from here,
Joe Biden made sure they did. Because there was a bunch of that crowd that did not want her up there either. And I will still grind on that shit forever. We're all going to get through this and everybody's going to vote. We're all on the same team right now. But there's a couple of people whose days are numbered in terms of people taking their political advice because they were coming for her and him during that period. But I think they're just shocked by the fact that she has, you know, been so inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, you know, she just knows what to say. And then again, Governor Walz. I mean, you know, you've got a couple people wanting to throw stones at a man that's 24-year military service. Your best bet is to shut your pie hole. You know, if you've never served in the military, you don't know nothing about the military, exercise some upper lip to bottom lip contact because that's what needs to happen. And, and, you know, once again, as a person, there's not a person out there that speaks negatively of Governor Walz. J.D. Vance, and I know that, you know, you're a comedian and you understand. There's a guy, and he's just a regular guy on TikTok, and now he's trying to act like J.D. Vance. He's like, hey guys, how y'all doing? Do you ever get a shirt that's too small on you? Yeah, right. That's J.D. Vance. He tells all these so shitty jokes, but J.D. Vance, and the guy's garbage, man. The interview in the donut shop is amazing. Hilarious.
I gotta say, at this rate, and Phil's joining us in just a minute, and I just want to make sure we remind everybody, turnleftpack.org is the Majors organization, and we are. I believe this. I know you believe this. That everybody, if every Democrat in this country voted, you would be, I think, shocked at how red states turn purple and purple states are all blue, because a lot of people just don't vote because they think, oh, it's my district, it's not going to change, my state's not going to change, Okay, you know what? Maybe you believe that. Vote anyways.
Yeah.
Do me a favor. For the next 3 cycles, if you think, and if you're right, you could fall back in 12 years. But right now, it's not a lot of an ask to at some point get off your ass and walk across town and actually vote. And so just the next 3 cycles, I just want you to do it. Even if you think you can't win the district, even if you think that, because A, you're going to prop up the mandate for the things you believe in, and you are going to, if everybody does it, you're going to shock the shit out of the Republicans that are running, because they're going to recognize they can't run extremists anymore. They can't. They have to appeal across a barrier. So that said, I hope I'll see you next week before you take off. Fingers crossed, because you're going to Europe, and maybe even I could talk even from there. But I won't try, because it's a great place, and you'll be busy, and the time zones will be all screwed up. You'll be all tired, and I'm still going to ask, but whatever. Anyways, you're awesome, and I want to remind everybody: turnleftpac.org. Get yourself some Jackaloon merch. And because there's an increasing crowd of those. Yeah, Andrea just put the link in the chat room just now. So thank you again, brother.
I always enjoy this. Also, I go live every night at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time on Ojeda Live on YouTube and Facebook. I always enjoy the show. I always get educated on the show. Thank you, Hal. You are the best. And I'm telling you, you be safe there in Ukraine.
Hey, Major, before you take off, just if you got a quick second, I wanted to tell you a quick story.
Okay.
All right.
Hold on.
And it's regarding this situation in Arlington.
Hold on 1 second.
Back in like 05, 06, I was working as a producer for 60 Minutes with Laura Logan. We were doing a story about a bunch of Iraq war vets who had come back stateside and decided to start protesting the war. And as part of that report for 60 Minutes, we tried to apply to film at Arlington, and this is journalism, Major. This isn't a photo op. This isn't for political means. We were doing proper journalism, and trying to include Arlington because these guys had lost friends in Iraq, which had motivated them to protest the war. The process for trying to get authorization to film at Arlington was so difficult. Ultimately, we weren't able to do it. It didn't fit within our time frame. For that piece of to use our sacred, hallowed ground for his political gain is disqualifying in my eyes.
Absolutely.
And as somebody who has stood side by side with soldiers, with our men and women in uniform, in combat and out, I as a civilian, Major, I know it doesn't make any sense, but I want to apologize. Every single member of the service that is out there, it never should have happened, and I am deeply distressed by it.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's unacceptable. We cannot accept that, and shit needs to be dealt with accordingly. I appreciate you guys. You stay safe, brother. Hal, let me know, brother. I'm always down, man. I enjoy
Love you, brother. All right, be safe. Cheers. See you next time.
Bye.
And let me bring in Phil real quick, and I just I had to do that quick change in on his.
Sorry about that. I
will be
to say that directly to
you
him
guys.
because, I'm angry. That really,
I understand
that I've been angry since I saw the first photo. It's I would never profess to do half or a fraction of what our men and women sacrifice and what they do in combat. But as I mentioned to Major Ojeda there, I've been in combat with U.S. forces. I've seen firsthand the sacrifices these guys make, and just to use it as a photo op.
Right.
And now we're hearing all the, of course we are, because the MAGA world is going to defend them no matter what. But all the excuses that are coming up, there is no way of getting away from one singular truth, and that is those pictures should never have seen the light of day. Even if you had a photographer there, even if you were invited by the family, even if the family wanted a photographer there,
they are personal.
To put them into the public arena makes it political, instantly makes it political. And nothing about Arlington should be political.
Right.
Nothing.
Agreed.
I am infuriated.
Yeah, it's grotesque. I will say I'm of two minds about it, because I think the fact that people saw him giving the thumbs up over a grave in and of itself made a lot of people go, okay, this guy's fucking, like, if you want to call Biden old and losing it, this is fucked up. But on top of that, that you would even think it's okay to do that means you have no idea how this works. You think you're still in charge of shit, or you still have the permission to do whatever you want, because to use them as a prop, right?
It's just, I mean, being a war correspondent is not being a soldier. It's a very different beast. I can go home, I can quit my job, I can decide, what threat level I engage in. It's not the same. But I've spent 25 years of my life working and traveling with U.S. service members, and it's been one of the greatest honors of my life. Like 100%. I am humbled by the sacrifice those people make. And to see him do that, it's just, it's such an affront. It's so disgusting. He can't get back in now. I mean, I know he's not, I'm confident he's not gonna.
Yeah.
Democracy.
But he's got to be, he's got to be,
he's got to go.
He's got to be drummed out of, like, the public discourse. He's got to become the new Benedict Arnold for this to be dealt with in any way, so that this doesn't happen again, so that somebody else, the next stage of, and by the way, some people were asking, why wasn't Biden at the Arlington ceremony? Okay, so the president goes to the laying of a wreath at the Unknown Soldier ceremony, I believe, once a year, like Memorial Day or Veterans Day, whichever one it is. And no matter who the president is, that's who they go. And other past presidents, if they want to show up, can, but they aren't expected to. Nobody really ever has that I'm aware of. But it's meant to be, the president does it on one day, right, for the whole country, whoever the sitting president is, and they're always there, right? Yeah, Memorial Day. I was thinking it was Veterans Day at one point, but there's another thing they do. But that's the point. They do it once.
It would make more sense to be Memorial Day.
And it is a national thing. This is not that. This was the family doing it, and this is part of that. You can pay to have a wreath put there, right? So
anybody who has a family member interred there can have a wreath laying.
Yeah, so they arrange for that, and then he shows up and turns it into a publicity stunt. That's what happened, and it's just fucking gross.
And I wouldn't be terribly surprised if somewhere down the line we find out that the family didn't reach out to Trump, but Trump reached out to the family.
Oh yeah,
the family said, "Well, of course you can come."
Right, because they think they can't say no. And, it's the same way that, like, Judge Cannon,
he's a former president.
Right, but also, like, he's their former president and whatever. Yeah, right.
Yeah, if you're of that mind, it's a great honor. But I wonder if he reached out, or did they reach out to him? Because I wouldn't be terribly surprised if his campaign reached out to them. And look, the whole thing is disqualifying, 100% disqualifying.
Yes.
Not that I needed another reason, but
no, yeah, nobody does. So obviously a bunch of things are happening in
and you'll notice we got no lights. So I'm running on battery power. Olga is not lit up. If you see the twinkling lights, which has also now become my arbiter. This is my signal,
right? How if the power's on?
If suddenly the twinkly little fairy lights around Olga start to come on, I'm like, I got power back, and I start running around like an idiot, like plugging in all my batteries and stuff.
Right.
Like that,
so you can store up stuff, which I'm sure a lot of people are doing, and taxes the system to some degree.
Everybody does.
Right, because they need to.
Is doing.
So yeah.
Because you need to, and not only that, but people will run their laundry, because we're all going to start to get really stinky here if we don't do our laundry, and you only get about a 2-hour window. There is as it was previously, for the months that we had, really a dry spell, and I don't know how long this is going to go, but there was a time there where we were going months and months without power, and so the local electrical provider does publish a thing where you plug in your address and it'll say, you're going to have 2 hours of power here. You will have power, full power for these 2 hours. And then you're not going to have power for 4 hours. And then for about a 4 hour period, or, for like a 2 hour or 4 hour
We
period,
don't know for sure.
You might have power, you might not. We're not sure. Right. And then you'll have guaranteed 2 hours again. And it's normally 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. And then there's a 2 hour period like in the middle of the night. Where they'll do it. And I think they do the middle of the night one because, as you point out, because there's going to be a rush on the system whenever it gets turned on. So
hoping that
that's
people
how
will
we're
plug their
living.
stuff in and it stays plugged in, and at night the draw is not
exactly.
as heavy. So
while you're sleeping, you
charge your batteries.
Your various. I got about
it's
5 of these things.
Yeah.
So
it's the same thing. It's the same benefit of having an electric car. So you charge it, you got one of those charging stations that, uses off-grid time to do that. Now, obviously, I don't know if you saw, you probably are very busy, so I don't doubt it if you missed it, but I covered a video of Tim Pool, who's kind of on the rung of tankies, I thought, pretty low. Just kind of misinformed and dumb, right?
Yeah,
but he got so angry that I was almost shocked at like what the fuck are you so butthurt about? But he was literally like he was banging his desk and saying Ukraine is the enemy of this country.
Enemy number one enemy of this country is Ukraine.
And I gotta say, like, it was so over the top, it looked paid for. It's the only thing that explains it. Or if you don't convince people or you're not convincing of this, we're not going to pay you. Like, it seemed like I'm going to lose something if this doesn't go my way, if people don't listen to me. In a way that I think it just seemed like, it seemed oddly performative. It felt like fake about him caring about the actual geopolitics, but very real about what it might cost him. Right, as far as audience, as far as whoever his, like maybe Russia will turn off the bot farms that watch him that artificially boost his show if he doesn't really sell it.
Has he been using Telegram?
Oh, well, that might be it. Yes. So let's get to that. So Durov.
Well, before we do, let me finish up. Let's talk about Pool for a second here. Mm-hmm. Because I agree with you. It was so over the top, and it was just so wrong. Mm-hmm. That it does make you wonder what his motivation was for doing it. And I don't know for sure. I think it's entirely possible that it's all wrapped up in the whole, dark money that is being fed to these guys to basically be useful idiots for the Kremlin. Or it could be that he knows that there's his audience. There does seem to be a growing anti-Ukraine movement. I think it might have something to do with the election, because obviously, Kamala came out in, outspoken support of Ukraine. Tim Walz has been outspoken in his support of Ukraine. So by default, anything you're for, I'm again. So, it's not the smartest thing in the world, but if it provides him an audience, he'll do it. Sickeningly. That's a sickening thing to do.
I got to say, though, all the people you're talking about were always against Ukraine. There were just varying degrees. There were the absolute peak, the needle, Jimmy Dore, having Scott Ritter on as a guest, the, twice convicted pedophile as a regular guest to argue why Ukraine is full of bad people, right? Those folks at Roseanne, like certain people.
Douglas McGregor.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like the hardcore ones. And then there's been the kind of like soft, like, what are we doing there crowd, which is what Tucker started out as. And then he went to Russia and it got very, very personal. But I got to say, of all of them, there's two things that happen. One, Ukraine invades Russia, and suddenly all these people kind of show their hand. as being like shocked, because I think some of them, like Glenn Beck, reacted to this like, oh no, this means I'm a loser because I was backing a side that's now losing, in a way that's irrefutable. You can argue about the back and forth. If the line doesn't move much in the Donbass, then they can go, Russia's really winning. It's just a matter of time. That storyline really does work if Ukraine doesn't invade Russia. Once Ukraine invades Russia and takes like 2,000 kilometers of territory, it's hard to argue that it's as cut and dry as they've been saying. So I understand a bit of the freak out, but this seemed like I'm going to lose my house if Russia doesn't win. Right? It was
which
very
leads me to
bitterly
believe
personal.
he was trying. Yeah, that he was. I mean, I do. I think he was pandering to a certain audience. I don't think he doesn't know enough about this conflict to have
right
to be that passionate
mad
about it.
That's exactly right. That he doesn't. Dude, his whole story about how like his simple solution was how Russia could win this war now that they've been invaded by Ukraine was for them to invade Latvia.
That's right. Yes, he didn't even know where Latvia was on the map.
Right, and then he goes to show where it is, and it means, and it's Lithuania is from next to Transnistria. And so,
yeah,
and like you could see him
it's
realize
Kaliningrad.
it.
He's next to Kaliningrad. Transnistria
Kaliningrad,
is down in Moldova.
That's right. So, well, he was like when he was moving the map around.
It's hot as Hades here.
I understand. He was moving the map all around, so he's like pointing at different. It's just hilarious. So, but you're absolutely right. So, but the irony is like you could see him looking at saying Latvia, then looking at the map and seeing the word Lithuania where he thought Latvia was, and this weird pause while he kind of like, all right, I'm gonna have to move this a little that way, right? You know, verbally. It was just stunning.
Such a moron.
Right. So again, if you have that low of an interest in it where you don't know that kind of basic stuff, or even that your ideas would be so pathetically absurd. If you're getting that hurt about it, it's got to be your financial bottom line or face. People only get that mad if I'm going to lose money or people are going to make fun of me because I'm an idiot. And
I lose respect.
Yeah, and I don't know where he thought he had
I'm going to come off as the idiot that I am.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And it seemed like
that. Well, I mean, honestly, I think since this war, the full-scale war, began and the world's attention turned to this place, there has been this. It's really hard to break the mindset of Russia is a great power. Russia is a great power, and so of course, little old Ukraine doesn't have a chance. Not realizing that. Actually, Ukraine is a pretty formidable country in its own right and was a huge part of the Soviet Union. So all the kind of metrics of what Russia is in people's minds, it's like, you know, presenting somebody, the old, okay, let's take the old meme, the dress meme, right? You look at a dress and somebody says it's gray, somebody says it's blue, right? It's a matter of perception. And the perception in all of the widely held perception of Russia as an entity was of a great nation state, a very powerful, formidable nation state. When it's not, it's deeply flawed with a lot of rot on the inside and a lot of dysfunction and pain and years of corruption. And Putin has built this very self-destructive entity, which provoked this war in so many different ways. But the metrics of understanding that Russia is not what we think it is, not what we were taught it was, not all the documentaries you watch about Stalingrad or the Second World War. Well, obviously Russia's this great major power. Well, that wasn't Russia. That was the Soviet Union in the Second World War, first and foremost. And also a lot's changed since Stalingrad. And also, if you look at the Russian Empire, even including like the 18th and 19th century, that was always a larger empire than what Russia is now. The Russia of today is a much smaller entity than what and even then, they have always been pretty crap at war. The people think about the Second World War, but they were in an alliance. They were the Soviet Union. Russia itself got its ass kicked by a dying empire in the 19th century.
Right.
They had a series of wars against the Turks. And yeah, they got Pyrrhic victory after Pyrrhic victory, but when they kind of pushed into Bulgaria and things like that. But those wars, victories as they were in quotation marks, were pretty pathetic.
Right.
They're not good at war. They like to think they are.
Well,
But unless they're part of a grand alliance, they kind of suck.
Yeah, one of my favorite details about the current Ukraine war is that up until he properly invaded Ukraine, until the special military operation started, Vladimir Putin had never started a war with a country that had more than 4 million people in it. He never engaged in a war with a country that had more than 4 million people in it. And even in countries where they had control of the space, they had friendlies in there, like Chechnya or Georgia or something like that.
And Syria is a little bit of a different case altogether because they were working with the Assad regime. So us and the international coalition fighting really
ISIS because on behalf of China. There's a bunch of bullshit all tied up in that. They don't even quite know who. I think what it is I was about to say Russia doesn't know what side it's on in that conflict, but I think the whole point is the rest of the world doesn't know whose side Russia is on because it's not as cut and dry as they'd like to think. That said, so the Durov guy. So I can't remember if we had a real chance to talk about it. So Telegram. One of the things about Thomas Crooks, the guy who shot at Trump and then was taken out of this world, which I don't ascribe to and I think is a bad thing. No political violence ever, period, end of story. Now, that guy, one of the stories that they're having is they're kind of looking into is that he allegedly had encrypted foreign accounts. And that's what everybody's... Okay, look, if you use Telegram, you have an encrypted foreign account. Just telling you. Even if you don't use the encryption, you have one of those. That's the thing. So watch for that talk when you hear it. Right. The Telegram is located in Russia. Like they're a Russian company, and the servers are all in Russia. And there was this big story in 2018 where there was a terrorist attack, I think, in Moscow or in maybe it was St. Petersburg. Anyways, and the Russian government came to Telegram because it was planned on Telegram. They used the private chat in Telegram to coordinate. The killers did it. They used that. And allegedly, Durov said, nope, we're not turning over our stuff. They were trying to, pretend they're Apple or something, and said, no, we're not turning over this stuff. And
this
their
was his
usage,
big free speech stand.
Yes. And the usage of the app went up in Ukraine 41% of people, 11% of people in Ukraine used it up to that point. 41% of people in Ukraine use it now, or used it right after that, like immediate. Now it's like 70, right? And every Russian in there uses it, right? So people were like, oh, wow, they won't turn my shit over to the Russian government? These guys are amazing. And so everybody started using it. Except now we know that they actually did turn over the keys to the Russian government, and that what they didn't give them was an externalized key to the system that they use. You just go down into the server room with a laptop and plug it in, and you can access anyone's conversations, encrypted or not, on Telegram from within the Kremlin, where the actual server base is. It's absurd. Anyway, so that's now coming out, and people are kind of getting recognition of it. But there's a lot of people who seem to, after Durov was busted, panicked about this, and it seems like a bunch of them are afraid. Like Interpol has, therefore the United States, therefore the West, therefore whoever now has access to all their.
Yeah, the panic was hysterical.
Oh yeah, they all got real mad, real fast.
No better panic or sense of aggrievement than what we saw in Moscow. And so anything that pisses off the people in Moscow is good, in my opinion. if they're angry about it, there's a reason, because they don't care about free speech.
No,
They don't care about any of that.
No.
There's something about it that they're spooked by, and if they're spooked, I like it. So yeah, I mean, people don't really use. I mean, people do use Telegram here, but obviously there's the WhatsApp, and then the military guys that I'm in contact with here in Ukraine. They gave up on Telegram a long time ago. They went off to Signal, and
Right.
like would not talk on Telegram. They were like, no, we'll only talk on Signal. Yeah,
But
no,
the ones that have Russian, that's the other thing though. The ones that do have actual Russian handlers are expected to use Telegram and presented with this idea that only we know what is being said here. So they're in contact with the Kremlin. They're getting their marching orders. These people who have the same talking points, and it seems like they come right out of RT. A lot of what they're getting, there's two sources, ladies and gentlemen. One of them, the primary one, is through Telegram, the private chat information and direct messaging. Although most of the Jimmy Dores of the world, and those folks do it all in the DMs or in the encrypted chats on those things. The other place they get it is in metadata in photographs and hidden in what would be, how do we put this, untoward websites. So websites that no one would be caught, in no self-respecting enemy of them would be caught perusing through. And it's one of the reasons why people believe that Nick Fuentes and Alex Jones have had tranny porn on their phones. It very well may be that this is just, a great way to contact them through the messaging on there. But it's also a great place to hide things, because you can, in those kind of websites, you can hide it temporarily in the data. You send somebody a text that says 11056, and then they go and they do a search for that on any, like a porn site or a gun site or a dark web site or whatever. And momentarily, until you're done reading it, till it says it's read, there will, in the metadata, if you show the source of a page, there can be a shit ton of text telling you all kinds of stuff that you can cut and paste, or you can actually just read there. And then the minute you close the web page, it's gone. So a bunch of these sites that are, sketchy as fuck are a great place to hide that stuff, because nobody goes digging around the metadata, and like page source stuff on, on transsexual porn sites, unless they're, working for the NSA and they're looking for this kind of stuff. But that's how they do it. I mean, that's, the other thing too is that in metadata for a photo,
that's why we need good AI in our intelligence community.
That's exactly right. That you can send somebody a photo and they're like, oh, they just sent me a picture. What's the big deal? And then you open the metadata on the picture, and 60% of the picture's size as a file is text. That can be code, actually, now. You can, back in the day, it was really just messages. Now you could put entire chunks of code in that shit, and people can, open a picture, look at the metadata, cut and paste, take code out and hack away.
That's right.
So
that is why.
Keep that in mind when these stories come up.
Let's see if I can find this here. Hold on a quick. That is why also I was very conscious of that on Monday, which is actually something we do need to discuss, because on Monday I was able to get. Let's see if I can get this to you.
Dragon X Flyer says, "How even the pixels can be code." Absolutely. I mean, you can literally do dark and light and turn that into binary as well. You can encode it into the type of colors that you use. You can have them all offset, because there's a myriad of numbers in a just how a picture is called up for every single pixel. And even that, you can use a color scheme where you can hide binary in the second number or the third number in each of the colors in a picture. So you look at something and it just looks like oddly tinted. That's one of the ways you do it. So
there, I think I've got it here. Well, that's why when I did this, let's see if I can. No, is this not going to work? I've got a picture from Monday that I'd like to share with you if I can make it work here. But
you can share it in the chat. You can drag it in there.
That's right. I've got Oh, there we go. That's how I'll do it. So this, where is the chat? Where's the chat? Oh, no, that's not it.
And on the video chat, like you can put a file in there. You can upload a file.
Wait a minute. There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, got that?
Yeah. You're sharing a screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you see those two white clouds,
Yes.
cloud-like looking things.
Mm-hmm.
Those are not clouds. Those are not clouds. That is our U.S. taxpayer dollars at work. That is the result of a Patriot missile strike in air defense. So, have you got it there? I'm going to stop sharing.
No, it's okay. Here, I'll show it on here.
You see it?
Yeah. Hold on one second. That would be there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Those two. Those two puffs are actually probably about 60 to 90 seconds after the incident, because we were getting so pummeled on Monday that I did go to I did go shelter in place. I put on the helmet and I went to a spot in my apartment where it's all concrete.
Right.
The pylons of the building are such that I can kind of and look, if it really gets bad, I'll go down and get out of the building and go into a shelter, which is right in front of my door. So anyhow, I did that because it was so intense on Monday. Monday was about the worst attack in Kiev since 2 New Years ago. When they really hit us bad in New Year's, not last year, not 23 into 24, but 22 into 23, or no, sorry, 23 into 24. No, what am I doing? 22 into 23.
There you go.
They hit us really hard. It was an awful, awful couple of days. This was on par with that. It was constant air defense going up, and the explosions of that. Several impacts. We got hit by a lot. Approximately 200 drones, missiles, what have you, were sent our way on Monday. Lots of people are speculating why. Not a lot of folks think it actually is in a response to the invasion or the action into Kursk, the special military operation Ukrainians are jokingly calling it, into Kursk.
Right.
Because the Russians claim that this was something that was planned a long time ago, and it certainly was. A lot of munitions coming our way. I mean, it was really big. So a lot of people are saying it was an Independence Day thing, but they waited until Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, was out of the country, and then hit us on Monday. I don't know. All I do know, whatever the intent was, and that's the other thing. Some people say that they were trying to destroy the dam that is north of us, which would have flooded Kiev and caused thousands of deaths. Potentially tens of thousands of deaths. I don't know about that, but they did certainly strike the dam. I don't know if they intended to destroy it and flood the capital, but they did hit it. Obviously, the electrical situation is now back to being really, really bad, and it's hot, but it's going to get cold, and this will not be fully repaired as we go into winter.
Right.
So into fall and winter. So it's going to get bad here. But having said that, its morale is still, I go down and I walk the streets and I talk to people, and it's like, well, what are we going to do? I mean, it's the Russians. The anger is definitely still. I mean, there is no chipping away at Ukrainian leadership here, not in any significant numbers, and certainly not prevalent. The enemy is Moscow, and Moscow is counterproductively attacking not only here in Kiev, but I on Monday I called around because I know people in Kharkiv, I know people in Kherson, I know people in Odessa, Lviv. I called around to all the major cities. Odessa was furious. Odessa, apparently the mood in Odessa was just livid because they got hit pretty hard.
Right.
It just, the Russians can't understand that every time they do this, it's counterproductive because it only steals the resolve of, well, how dare you do this to us? We're never gonna submit to you. We're never gonna bend the knee to you. So while there's stuff happening in Donbass, and unfortunately, and we should probably discuss this, Russians are making advances in Donbass, 100%. They are moving, and they're moving quicker than normal. They're edging in on a city called Pokrovsk, and Pokrovsk is yet another one of these kind of hubs, transportation, logistical hubs. I think the stat is it's like a city of 48,000 or something like that. People are evacuating. Heartbreaking images coming out of there of people with everything that they can shove in a suitcase and carrying their children and their pets. And this is distressing, but it's true, at least from what the reports we're hearing from Pokrovsk, is that the men are staying. These are not trained soldiers. They're just people who have homes in Pokrovsk.
Right.
And they're going to fight. And they're probably going to die in large numbers. Because, this whole thing that Trump does, not to bring up Trump again, but this narrative that he sells about you're being lied about the death toll in Ukraine because look at these cities, they're devastated. There must be more death. Right. Well, that's not true, because when the Russians are coming, by and large, civilians are evacuated. Yeah, that's what they did ultimately in Mariupol. That's what they did in Bakhmut. That's what they did in Avdiivka. It's get the civilians out, men, women, and children out. Send in trained soldiers to defend. Pokrovsk, it seems, is a line in the sand that the Ukrainian people are going to draw and say, no, we'll make Molotov cocktails. We will form street brigades. We will, we'll have blocks, apartment block, defenses that we ourselves will put up. They will die in disproportionate numbers. So
because they're not trained soldiers and they're not coordinated.
They're not trained soldiers. They're just they're just Bob down the street who has an AK-47 and a bunch of empty bottles with some kerosene or whatever, glycerine to make Molotov cocktails, and he's gonna he and his neighbor Ivan and Igor and Stefan, they're all going to go and get their furniture, bring it down to the front, bring it down to the entryway to the building,
barricade,
the apartment building, make a barricade, and wait for the Russians. And that's not. They'll take as many Russians with them as they can, right? But I am deeply concerned about the Battle of Pokrovsk, this coming battle, because this is different than the other battles we've seen. This is the general population, disproportionately male. Obviously, there's a lot of masculinity, machismo kind of thing going on here, right? And they'll try and kill as much of the Russians as they invade as possible. But there's only so much you can do against an armored column, coming down your street. Nevertheless, they'll be reinforced
zombie
by
tactics.
Yeah,
I mean, all you've got are zombie tactics, right?
It's not going to be pretty. Zelensky says they will reinforce, but of course they are also over in Kursk. Some of their better units are over there. They might have to send in other units, and the situation on the ground is very fluid. Kursk remains important. Important to show the world that Ukraine can think out of the box and cross red lines, and we haven't been nuked yet. So what are you waiting for, the West? Why are you waiting?
Right.
If you're afraid of Vladimir Putin's red lines, we've just crossed a whole bunch of them and nothing happened to us.
Well, here's the this is the news.
That's appealing here.
Yeah, Russia issues
Yeah,
World War III warning to U.S. They've talked about this shit the entire time. Like it's nothing new. The new part is that that Ukraine's inside Russia now, but like again,
And we're going to reassess our nuclear deterrent posture. That's the other big saber rattling.
Right. That's So Lavrov, famously, you'll recognize this dude from laughing in the Oval Office with Donald Trump a couple of weeks before some of our Israeli allies got killed who were spies in Syria and in the other parts of the Middle East, because Trump allegedly told them who they were, where they were getting the information from, which was enough for them to go on and kill a bunch of our assets in the region and Israel's assets in the region to benefit Iran as a partnership. And you wonder why they're all happy to give the Shahed drones again, right? There you go. So he said that the West was asking for trouble. Like, okay, asshole, you invaded another country. We're asking for trouble. This seems like the trouble you were asking for, right? Don't be a wuss about it. So he says that
there's an easy solution to stepping back from the Third World War there, Sergei. You just leave.
Get the fuck out. Right.
Get the hell out of Ukraine, and it all ends.
Yeah, Lavrov warned the West against entertaining Kyiv's request for long-range weapons to strike within Russia. We've long been hearing these speculations about allowing the use of not only Storm Shadow, but also American long-range missiles. By the way, some anonymous source in Washington said that such work is being done. Some anonymous source in Washington. He's talking about Tucker Carlson. Ukraine's request is being viewed in a generally positive light, bullshit. And by the way, I got to say, like, I think the military is allowing a lot more stuff to be used far inside the country and is supporting them through that. So as a way to bait the Russians into a situation where their own red lines are crossed, where they are caught in their own bullshit. And I still stand by the fact that there's no way we fought the Cold War with the depth and ferocity that we did. And then in 91, when it all fell down, that we just said, this'll last. And we just let it hang and just said, their nukes are there and we'll just, we'll call it a day. We had, if anybody with brains would have sent CIA and Interpol and fucking MI6 guys all over the place to reprogram those missiles, so that they would never work again. Just malware as far as the eye could see. And at that point, it was way simpler to do that on a mechanical level. Everywhere you fucking went, they weren't even being guarded. That was the biggest concern. The biggest concern was nobody's watching the silos anymore, right? They were worried that Chechens or somebody would get a hold of a nuke. That was the concern. So the international community, IAEA, all these folks, that's how Scott Ritter ended up there.
Yeah.
Acting on behalf of the Russians. They're like, hey, want to do us some favors? We'll give you all the underage girls you can ask for. And I mean, if you're going to fucking get a leash on somebody that's like him, that's how you do it. So anyways, the idea is that
they're all crowing. They're all so happy about this, about the losing territory in Donbass. Mm-hmm. And then they also, all the tankies are saying, oh, look how Ukraine has overexerted itself. I mean, I have a problem with this week's episode of On the Edge because I interviewed one of these tankies thinking that we could, he one of these, what I call the scrimmage line guys, the guys who, that's all they do is look at maps and go, oh, well, this little strategic pressure point, that means that this, and this will result in this. And they're playing a big game of risk.
Yeah.
Poorly, with no education and no training and no experience. So I set up an interview with one of these guys, and I didn't think I was going to dissuade him of his pro-Moscow, Ukraine is filled with Nazis and Russia's just defending itself from aggressive NATO. But I did think that I had a chance to say, look, man, this war is not going to be won or lost by a strategic line on a map, because Russia can't take the things that it really needs to take. That this isn't just, I mean, obviously war is always about taking and holding territory, but there's so much more going on there. And he just, just dug in his heels and was like, no, absolutely. Once Ukraine's defenses collapse, they're going to collapse completely. And there are going to be Russian tanks driving down the main streets in Kiev and Odessa, in a couple of months. And I was just like, no, man, that's not going to happen. So I'm not going to be publishing that because there's just no point. I'm not going to disseminate that crap. But I've been chewing over it and thinking about the points that he was making. And I came to a realization that another analogy, I've made the analogy between the death of the British Empire
right,
and in concerns with like Ireland or India, and the death of the Russian Empire when it comes to Ukraine. And I just think it's the same. The analogy that I am now starting to make is, and I've said this also many times before when we talk, is that, yes, there is a distinct possibility that the West forces Ukraine to surrender Mariupol and that Russia takes and seizes and holds Donbass.
Yeah.
Yes, that could happen. The British still have Ulster. The empire's dead. Russia may get the Donbass, but the empire's dead. Moscow may hold Donbass, but the empire, which is really what this is about, it's dead.
Yeah.
If they can't take and alter Kiev and bend it to its knee, either by force of arms or by its corruption, and if they can't take Odessa and threaten the Black Sea, they have lost their empire. It's only a matter of time. Just like the Brits lost their empire, even though they still have Northern Ireland. Mm-hmm. It's done, man. It's just the monster has not the death in the Brontosaurus is in the tail, hasn't made it to the brain yet. So anyhow, that whole thing, it is getting bad in Donbass, but ultimately Russia cannot win here, and this is the death of the Russian Empire, one way or another. Well, ultimately, and Putin will be out of the picture.
You can tell the impact of the Kursk region by how other people react to it. You know what I mean? Like one of the things in a fight or in a chess match that you always look for is that when you make a move, does their reaction look like they were expecting it, or does it look like surprise? Does it look like do they start making do they have a strategy that expected this, so they start moving in a predictable way, what you thought they would do? In chess, this is a big part of it. Or if somebody flinches in a fight, or did they react in sort of a panicked way? Right? Russia's clearly acting in a panicked way, and you can tell by watching them. So in this one, this is Open Minds just writing an article about the reaction to the Kursk invasion by Ukraine. And in their executive summary, they go, the incursion immediately became a prime topic in the Russian internet. We had identified a 196% increase in the amount of content about the war compared to the week before the incursion started. In total, we've collected more than 470,000 documents about the incursion from 800 various sources, VK, Telegram, all this kind of stuff. This is the part that stood out to me. The Russian propaganda narratives related to the incursion have been unusually uncoordinated. That's and I gotta say, that's where a bunch of the people like Tim Pool and others that I've seen react to this, it's kind of a shocking response, because it's almost like they're not getting like, here's your talking points, go. It's just like, you better fucking push back on this or you're in deep shit too. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do, right? And so it's like sending guys from the motor pool to the front line with a gun that that looks like it has the barrel faces in both directions. They have no idea what they're doing, right? Different war correspondents raised panic about the loss of the Russian army, while the pro-Kremlin media outlets downplayed the scale of the event, calling it a provocation. This anomaly shows that the incursion was unexpected for both Russian authorities and propagandists. Nobody knew. That's why they're reacting this way. Because
it's been fun to watch.
Yeah. A give and take on the line in Donbass is a predictable thing. There will be wins and there will be losses. There will be, like pushback and encroachments that will happen because of it. This was off the fucking table, and it happened. And so that's why that's why the Tim Pools and everybody are they're almost like the Trump campaign when Kamala became the nominee.
Yeah, no, I was thinking I was going to mention that.
He just fucking catch up against the wall, like just see what sticks. They have no idea what to make of this, right? Yeah. And it is abundantly clear,
which is incredible for both of them, actually. Mm-hmm. is for both Trump and for Moscow to not have had somewhere a file like, I don't know if it's going to happen, but we better have, like, it's a potential, thing. So we better have some kind of a plan in case of emergency, break glass. Neither of them seem to have done that. So,
Right.
These guys they're not smart people.
No,
guys.
they aren't. This top of their game
Putin
shit is a bunch of
Donald Trump
nonsense.
is not
Now,
a smart man.
no, he is not. I would also like to say that they are also not the greatest physical specimens. For some reason, right now, I don't even know if you know this, but a bunch of the one of the FSB guys can't even chew. He choked on meat, and he had a chunk of meat in his esophagus. Apparently, he just couldn't chew. It was chewing near an open window, I think, was the problem. And there was a gust of wind that blew it into his windpipe. And, yeah, match that with the other guy who I believe was like a Moscow chief of police guy or, part of their justice department that was in charge of overseeing some of the, the coverage of, legal coverage of the terrorist attack at that theater. That guy threw his wife and baby off a fucking balcony.
That. Oh, yeah, those were not pretty pictures. Yeah, I regret seeing those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These guys are not handling
and there's
it well.
There's another oil depot in Rostov on fire.
Yes. Yeah, I was getting to that next. The number of
it's not going their way, despite what's happening in Donbass. It's not going there. And again, I reiterate, I'm not looking forward to the Battle of Pokrovsk. I feel for these men who are basically civilians, who are just going to be brave, and they're going to fight for their home. But they're going to it's going to be bad. A lot of them are going to die. But aside from that, they're not going to. Okay, so after Pokrovsk, there's a town called Kramatorsk and another city called Slavyansk. These cities are, I've been to both. They're disproportionately large than these kind of cities cities of 40 or 50,000 people. Petrovsk and Slavyansk, don't quote me on this, but they're somewhere north of 100,000. They're proper cities. The Russians and the Ukrainians will fight for them. Not just the civilians and the inhabitants of the city, but they will properly defend those cities. I've seen the defense works that have been put into those places. But ultimately, I don't think they have the capacity to, without a prolonged fight for Kramatorsk, the size of a months long siege, like we saw in Mariupol. And it's going to bog them down, and it's going to, I do not think they can take Kramatorsk. I'm sure they cannot take Kharkiv. I'm sure they cannot take the cities on the right bank of the Dnipro, which cities like Zaporizhia, cities like Dnipro. They're never going to take Odessa. And unless they can take those, we end up with an Ulster kind of situation where, okay, you took a bunch of the country. But it is going to cause the collapse of your empire, and Vladimir Putin is going to die.
For what?
He will be deposed.
Because the people aren't going to become Russians. They're not going to acquiesce to you. You're going to have to you're just going to have to murder everybody there and replace them with their own. So the story becomes you as an increasingly horrible villain. So I have to say, I have a more long-term strategic view of how this is going. And I'm always a big believer in, if one side is making surprising moves in a battlefield, all the other surprises might be weighted in one direction as well. They might be falling back to drag someone in. And this is why I think this particular area looks like a trap. Yeah,
there's been that.
This looks like a trap to me. And I'll tell you why. Because if you say, we just got civilians there and just the civilians are going to fight back and they don't have the source and we're never going to be able to look at if people can see, I don't know how well you can see the picture here. But this area is in a triangle of roadways. There's a junction here, and there's a junction here. And then there's an entire, connection road going back there, so that the Ukrainians can supply from up here, and can way down here, because again, these people aren't making the Russians are not making their way across this line for some reason. They're not even crossing the freeway down here, the main roadway, and the same issue up here. There's another big roadway which the Ukrainians can make it all the way down to here. This looks like they are flooding them into a zone. They are allowing them through. And so they can snatch you could just snap the trap. You can snatch the trap on. That's what it looks like.
General
dude.
Syrski is a very, very cunning, general, and,
very shrewd dude. And the Russians, as poorly trained as they are, and as forced to take every bit that they can. And also the big thing is units want to be able to report that they've taken land or they get fucking killed. And so this is you're gonna fall if that it's a pop the pimple move, exactly. Falasheen in the chat room, it's a pimple pop. That's what it is.
But okay,
that's what they're doing. They're squeezing it all in one place.
The other thing, sure, it's a bulge. This is military 101. I've covered well over a dozen wars. This is how it goes. There's another factor though. And it's something because when we talk about, like when I say it will take months and months for them to besiege Kramatorsk or Sloviansk or even Pokrovsk, that will take us past November.
Yeah.
And if the way things are going to go in the United States, and I'll see you when I come to cast my ballot, because I'm coming over to cast my ballot. If we get November done properly and we put that Putin's puppet. Hillary was right.
In the rearview mirror.
Putin's puppet. We put him in the rearview mirror, and I know people argue with this because there are people who are like Jake Sullivan, saying, people who are very hypercritical of him, saying they're being too cautious because they don't want an escalation until the yada 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 yada. And there is like these legitimate concerns about we don't want to give them too many weapons and. I don't think that's true. I don't. I think they're scared of overextending or doing something in this conflict that would provoke fears of, oh my God, what are we doing? We're getting involved in more foreign wars. Trump's right. We're going to go into the Third World War and we're going to nuke everybody. And right now, sadly, as much as it breaks my heart to know that Ukrainians are dying because of American domestic policy, until we get rid of the puppet, and that is going to happen in November, we are restrained in what and how we can respond. It breaks my heart to say that. I take no pleasure in saying that. But we were attacked. In 2016, the United States of America was attacked by Russian military intelligence. They put him in office. It was too narrow of an election, and no one factor was determinative. But they put their finger on they put their thumb on the scale, and I want a full inquiry once he is in our rearview mirror. But more importantly, we need to get him out of office, and then once he's out of office,
he is out of office. We got to keep him out, so he's never got another chance.
Sorry, once we get him off the political landscape. Then we can be a much better ally to Ukraine.
Absolutely. And by the way, Boston
firmly do believe.
Yeah. Boston Brian is asking me if I can explain a map like I'm Tim Pool. Yeah, I'm glad to. So for those of you that are watching from home, this is terrible. This is what's happening is terrible. This is right here. This area is downtown Oklahoma. It says right there. And then over here, they call an oblast is an area where I guess the Russian NASA launches from out of Donetsk, which is, if you're not familiar, Donetsk makes your brown eyes blue. And over here is Robstov. This is where all the oil is. So we're going to give all of our oil to Russia now because Ukraine doesn't want us to have it, and so we can't get our oil from. This is terrible. That's the best I can do. That's as dumb as I can get. Yeah. And it's still not even close.
Okay, so my little army men are here, and I've got 10 of them on this road.
Yep.
And then I've got the Russians have got 15 of the little men over there. It's all going to make it.
I got to tell you, I guarantee this is so dumb, but I guarantee if Tim Pool glanced at this map, like somebody just put it in front of him, he would think this is where Russia's going to nuke. He would think these circles, which as opposed to being just the reference circles that the Institute for the Study of War is using to show the area they're talking about, I guarantee he thinks those are like in war games. You know what I mean? Like I guarantee it. He's like, this is what they're gonna nuke that whole area, and then we're all gonna be in World War III, and that's gonna go on for years. I'm like, how does a nuclear war go on for years? I'm dead serious. What are you talking about? It's crazy. It is. Well, it's not crazy. It's just dumb. Yep. So dumb. Yeah, he thinks these are impact craters because Russia would, I guess, blow up their own troops where they're making progress. Is what it would be the logic here. But this is that area. This is the part that's breaking through.
I'll shoot Brian a message soon. By the way, Brian, if you're still there,
please do. So this, I got to say, this feels like a bait. Because they're not making any progress. This is the same kind of level of fighting. They're definitely holding them there. But what it seem to be doing is, and this is, once you got F-16s, it's real easy to encircle this area in a way that they weren't able to do before. And again, what I would also like to say, and I know we're going to lose you, but everybody check out On the Edge, Philip Ittner's podcast that he's putting
I hope I have a show this week. I'm still working on it.
Because of
the
power.
guy who and also the power issues. The guy I interviewed was just like, I'm not going to put that crap on the air.
It's a waste of time, right? It's just propaganda.
There's no point to it. It's your ignorance is just, you've been fed so much bullshit from Moscow. And again, also, you're an armchair general who thinks you know far more about what war is like than the reality is. You're looking at lines on a map and you think that explains the war.
Right.
And sure, lines on a map are part of a war, but people are the
human beings. And this goes to red districts versus blue districts in the United States. Blue districts in the United States, very densely populated. Red districts in the United States, very sparsely populated. A lot of land, not a lot of people. So when you look at a map of the red areas and the blue areas in the country, it seems like the red outnumbers the blue by like a lot. But there's also 16 miles between each of the people in these situations. It's a very similar thing when it comes to war maps like this. This all is owned by Ukraine because it's Ukraine. It's strictly Ukraine. They own all of it. They can farm it. They can do whatever the fuck they want with it. This area is the part that for sure Russia has. And then there are areas in here where that they've got control of. The only reason this area is red is because this area is in front of it. Okay, so if there was a real map of what they control, it would show, the strategic areas that they control and a big bunch of gaps that are technically still Ukrainian land. They just don't have a way to get to it right now. So there are these big white holes. Like, go look at a map of Texas, removing the Native American land on it. It gets real small real quick. You start Texas has, I think, the land size of like Illinois and part of Missouri. If you take out all the native land, if you take out all the res areas.
But do spare a thought. Do spare a thought for the men of Pokrovsk who are about to go into the meat grinder, and they're brave men, and they are.
Yes, they are.
It is indicative of Ukraine. They will fight, and a lot of them will die. But it is better to fight standing on your feet than kneeling on, than bowing on your knees. And that is the mentality of Ukraine. So now we enter into that period of this war, Hal, that you and I have spoken about since the beginning of this war. Now we're going to see partisan warfare. We're going to see guerrilla warfare. We're going to see an insurgency.
Which is the real hard part if you're not from someplace. That's the part where they've got the upper hand. You don't belong there and
you're not wanted.
Right. Yeah. This is, by the way, the Rostov oil fire. It's been burning for 8 days now, I think. And it just got hit by another group of drones. Yeah. Now there's a second one, right. And that's not going to stop either. And by the way, Russia is already selling oil below the market price they have to hit to break even, which means they are shutting down pumps and drills because, mainly the pumps, because they can't afford to keep them running because the oil's not going to go anywhere. Can't be processed, can't can't be put into barrels. There's nobody to do the work because they've sent them to the fucking front line to die. So, anyways, I appreciate you. I look forward to the next episode of On the Edge, and I will see you on Saturday.
Yep.
I will be doing
hopefully
the show
this Sunday. I'm not giving
Yes.
up. I'm going to see if I can find a replacement for this
Great.
idiot and bang it out. We have the power issues here, so that's going to make it more complicated. If I do miss this Sunday, it'll be the first Sunday that I miss, which will break my heart. So I'm going to do everything I
Right.
can to get an episode out.
Excellent.
We are going to look, we're going to live like this. This is how it's going to be. There's not going to
Right.
be electricity. It's not going to come back anytime soon, but it is also not going to break resolve here.
I wouldn't
this
rule
is do
out,
or
by the
die.
way,
This
is a possibility.
I wouldn't rule out it getting fixed.
Yeah, but also 2 or 3, locals that you know from areas or whatever, asking them if they want to come on and talk about their personal experience as Kievites or whatever.
I'm
might be a
confident I'll
great
find
thing
something.
too. I don't doubt it. So, anyways, On the Edge, it's at Philip
All right, bud.
Bittner's YouTube channel. Check it out. Thank you so much, brother, and we will see you next time. All right, there he goes, ladies and gentlemen.
Hopefully with actually electricity.
Yes, definitely. Okay, cheers. There he goes. Excellent. And cool. All right. And chat room, hi. I just want to jump in here real quick. You've been watching Hal Sparks' Mornings, Megaworldwide, and I think that shows taste and breeding on your part. You know, we've got a crowd in here in the morning show now that rivals the biggest crowds we had in the afternoon show. And I got to tell you, that warms the cockles of my heart. And I didn't even know I had cockles until they started to heat up like this. I mean, honestly, you could fry bacon on my cockles. And I mean that in the most innocent and sweetest way possible. That said, thank you guys for the time you spent here and your eyeballs. It means a lot. Thank you for the trolls. I saw a couple in here early. We had some trolls and some naysayers or whatever. I want to make everybody a troll. Some of you actually believe your shit. Trolls really don't, they're just dragging bullshit behind them, hoping and they catch a fish that eats bullshit. I don't know what the analogy is there. But the point is, I appreciate you guys so much. Because the trolls and the naysayers and the maggots that come in here, because you spread this show out into an area of the internet it would not otherwise go, because that part of the algorithm ignores me. But since you're here, it shows my show in your also watched stuff, whether you see it or not, to other people. So thank you for that. And especially if you write things. I don't know if you guys realize how much of a gift your, obviously the non-specifically racist, bigoted, or, specifically sexist stuff. If you're going to write something like that, obviously it has to be broomed out because you can't use that kind of language. But if you're just, the idea is there, whatever, and you type it out without using any of the N words and the B words and whatnot, and the F words, not the one I use all the time, but the other one, the pejorative for gay people. When you don't use those, then it can stay up. And the fact that you actually type something tells the internet, holy shit, not only do they watch, but this guy's engaging. So, I want to thank you guys, and I want to thank everybody in our chat room who, basically rings the dinner bell for these types, because there's such a party being had here, and you guys are so smart and so up on stuff and so sweet, and I adore you, and I will see you this afternoon. I will be on early today. Still going to have the regular show, but I'm going to be on early today in a little bit, because I'm going to do another episode of the Project 2025 stuff, so I can start stacking those clips. Yeah? All right. Much love. See you later. And don't forget, hit that like, okay. And thank you for the super chats, everybody. You can do it. You can become a Patreon. You can support through Venmo. You can do all that stuff. You can buy me a cup of coffee through all those other sources. You can super chat me a cup of coffee. You can send stars on Facebook. You can make the show continue. No pressure, though. Okay, see you later.